Dominica's Prime Minister tells the opposition stop trying to prevent Friday's elections. In Trinidad, local government elections have ended with a 7-7 tie. And Finland's Prime Minister resigns after losing support from his coalition cabinet. Hello and welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla Gonzalez in Quito, and this is From the South. We begin in Dominica, where Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit has addressed the nation and called on opposition leaders and supporters to stop trying to prevent Friday's elections.
At the public meetings, the UWP has been telling the supporters that there is no certainty there will be elections on the 6th. This attempt to stop the elections was very much part of the narrative the UWP has been feeding to external forces and to the Secretary General of the OAS to try to justify and obtain outside interference in Dominica's elections, particularly by the OAS.
And referring to the latest opposition protests, the Prime Minister said the security forces would act with restraint, but would not let things get out of hand.
The government of Dominica has every confidence that local security forces are fully competent and committed to exercising the skill and restraint required in the face of these acts of provocation. They will maintain safety and law and order in our country. They will not let the situation get out of hand and a few people tarnish Dominica's good name. Fellow Dominicans, I want to remind everyone, for absolute clarity, that the laws under which these elections are taking place have governed national elections in Dominica, no matter which party was in government or opposition. In 41 years of independence, Dominica's elections have always been free and fair. Have always been free and fair. This time will be no different.
Skerrit also said that the opposition is desperate as it stands to lose the elections and that the UWP leadership is unfit to lead Dominica.
These are the acts of a desperate man and party who know they're losing and are trying to pull the country down with them. They are using a small group of supporters, lawful and unlawful means, to try to intimidate the general public and to try to create a negative narrative for the outside world. Their ultimate goal is to stop an election that they cannot win in the ballot box. Not because of any kind of electoral abuse by the Labour Party government, but because the UWP and its leadership have repeatedly demonstrated to the country that they do not care about Dominica or Dominicans, and they are unfit to lead this country.
And finally, the Prime Minister said free and fair elections would go ahead on Friday, and he called on the UWP leaders to tell their supporters to stop.
I assure the public, Dominicans in the diaspora, and the international community that despite the deliberate acts of a few people to give the impression of unrest and violence in Dominica, this country is safe. And free and fair elections will go ahead on December 6th as scheduled. I repeat my call to Lennox Linton, Edison James and the UWP to bring an end to this lawlessness. I am calling on them to tell their supporters to stop. I am calling on Linton and the UWP to put Dominica first.
As we heard, the opposition in Dominica launched more protests to try to disrupt Friday's general election. Supporters of the United Workers' Party lit fires and blocked a road in Marigot near the island's main airport. Marigot is a constituency of the UWP leader Lennox Linton. The party has gone to court to ask for an injunction to block the vote on December 6th. With backing from the Secretary General of the OAS, Luis Almagro, and the United States, the opposition party has been demanding electoral reform before the country goes to the polls. But the governing Labour Party says it was the opposition that blocked its repeated attempts to introduce voter ID cards. Opposition supporters held a small protest outside Dominica's High Court where their request for an injunction is being heard. They claim the electoral register needs cleaning up because it includes voters who are no longer alive. But the court has not yet made a ruling. And a delegation of election observers from the Commonwealth has arrived in Dominica to accompany the elections. The government of Roosevelt Skerrit has also invited observers from the Caribbean community, CARICOM, and the United Nations. However, it has so far declined to invite the Organization of American States to send a mission after accusing its Secretary General of interference. Let's turn to our correspondent Alejandro Kirk in the capital, Rousseau, with a report.
We are back today at the Dominica's High Court, where a proceeding is taking place in order to debate a motion of injunction to stop the elections to take place this coming Friday. The idea of the opposition, this is presented by a civil society movement called Concerned Citizens Movement, with the support of the opposition party, the United Workers' Party of the candidate Lennox Linton. They want to stop these elections, probably to prevent another victory by the Labour Party of Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. They are not going to win this, seemingly, this demand here in Dominica, but they are hoping to take it up to a Caribbean higher court in Trinidad and Tobago, where they expect to have what they say an impartial court or more sympathetic to the cause. That injunction, if it works in Trinidad, would create a political stalemate and probably aggravate the crisis that seems to be building up here in Dominica.
Alejandro Kirk from Dominica. In other news, the Colombian Strike Committee has delivered its demands to President Ivan Duque at a closed-door meeting following the November 21st national strike. One environmental leader lamented that the forum did not allow the nation to participate.
I deeply regret that you're the one to set the tone for these talks and that you're not in tune with what the people are demanding. This should not be a closed meeting. We ask for a live broadcast. This should be a space for people to be heard. Like those who protest outside your home every night, Mr. President.
Carlos Santiago also noted that the committee will not continue with negotiations.
When will you fulfill your campaign promises to end fracking and create policies to protect our wetlands? And we urge you to listen to what young people are demanding. It's mostly young people and women out there. It's a call rooted in love and affection, a plea for you to take on this challenge. We will continue to take to the streets until you understand, Mr. President, that environmental issues are a priority.
And he also demanded that the government stop the persecution of peaceful protesters by riot police, as he recalled the murder of 18-year-old Dylan Cruz.
We want anti-riot police to stop violating our rights and for there to never be another Dylan Cruz. I told you at a meeting on Tuesday, and I repeat, it was your decision, Mr. President, your decision that ended the life of 18 minors in Caqueta. It was your decision to disperse a peaceful demonstration, and until we address what anti-riot police have done, we cannot continue with any negotiations.
We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. More news at this hour. The Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has praised the support and solidarity received by Venezuela from Russia. He was speaking at a ceremony to give the Francisco de Miranda Award to Russian Ambassador Vladimir Fedorovich Zaimsky.
Creo que el trabajo del embajador
I believe that the work of the ambassador, in 10 years, 2 months and 20 days, is worthy of recognition and admiration. We have strengthened our relations. Today, Russia and Venezuela have deep and close relations of friendship, of strategic alignment, of political and diplomatic agreement, of closeness and permanent dialogue.
Thousands of cases of police brutality have emerged in Chile since anti-government protests started in mid-October. But with no formal way to make complaints, there are no reliable figures, and most victims have not received medical care.
We don't know most of their names, but like Violette, hundreds of Chileans have been brutally beaten and left unconscious by the police. There are no records of detention, no confirmation of injuries, or of medical attention. On Friday, November the 22nd, Violeta González took part in demonstrations like she had done every afternoon since the mobilization started. With a slim build, small stature, soft voice and a quiet personality, Violette was suddenly surrounded by special forces. Her face will never be the same, but her conviction remains intact. We visited her home, where she has waited for medical treatment for more than 1 week.
I don't know the extent of damage to my eyes. I don't know if I have damage to my brain that will affect my cognitive abilities. I'm a student, a worker and a craftswoman. What they did has stopped me from doing everything that makes me who I am. The public health service sent me home claiming that I have minor injuries, but when I visited a private clinic, I was told that my injuries are serious and that it will take me at least 2 years to recover.
The Gabriela Mistral Cultural Center is the focal point of demonstrations. It also serves as a shelter for health groups. The walls are stained with the remnants of police brutality. And it was here that Violette was attacked.
The only thing I saw was 2 policemen, and then I felt blows to my face. I fell and couldn't hear anything. There was a child that was being beaten in front of me. I don't know how long I remained unconscious for, but when I came to, a boy was shouting while being beaten. The more he cried, the harder he was hit. I managed to run to the opposite side, where there was a group of people.
Diana, a student studying obstetrics, went out for the first time as part of a medical group.
I saw a girl hugging another girl, and she had her hand covered in blood. That's when I realized that the police were behind us, and a group was coming towards us. I approached the girl and asked her what happened. I saw the police getting closer. I grabbed her and made her run, and we came here.
There were dozens injured, and still police continued to repress them, inflicting additional suffering with tear gas, toxic water and beatings. Residents of Las Taria neighborhood opened their homes to provide them with refuge from the chaos.
They are massacring us. We can't overstate what's happening. Violet said they have messed up her life. Look at how many people have lost their eyes. And they are going to tell me that there are no systematic violations to human rights happening here?
Violette has her nose shattered, and she still hasn't been given medical attention. She has no confirmation of her injuries. There is no record of her attackers.
If anyone saw me and has some record or is willing to make a statement, please, I ask you to contact us. The National Institution of Human Rights and the prosecution are asking us if we at least know which squad it was. I don't have the knowledge because I lost consciousness.
This is the voice of victims against the state and its police institutions.
1 week has passed. Gentleman from the broad front. My daughter, a wonderful woman that never hurt anyone, who would never kill a fly. Her nose is shattered. This is your agreement for peace, not mine. You found a worst enemy. Do you know who are your worst enemies? All the mothers of this country that have lost their children.
Gloria was a victim of the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, and today her daughter has lived through the same evils that never went away.
I feel like the dictatorship did not end. The dictatorship has not ended. They tricked us. We have lived 46 years under dictatorship, not 30, as some say. We have lived 46 years in a dictatorship that defended Pinochet's legacy.
We are not at war, but we are in a dictatorship disguised as a democracy. They are killing us, they are torturing us, they are leaving us blind, but they are not going to win because we realized that dignity is not the crumbs they gave us.
They say they will not surrender, despite the threats, violence, and the silence from the mass media.
They have pointed guns to my face many times, at less than 5 meters, and I lost my fear of that. My family tells me to stop doing what I'm doing, but I know my place is here, with the people I have to help, and I will not leave the street.
Por favor, no tengan miedo. No tengan miedo. Yo sé que es difícil.
Please don't be afraid. This is being done by the state and the police who are supposed to care for us. And they are killing us and torturing us. But don't be afraid. Show what is happening in your countries. Please, among all Latin America, let's join together because we will win what we deserve.
Far from keeping them quiet, state violence has given these citizens strength.
Now let's turn to other news. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister plans to take legal action against Dr. Arnold McIntyre, a deputy chief in the IMF's Western Hemisphere office. This after McIntyre allegedly made defamatory comments about regional leaders, including calling Brown corrupt, in a WhatsApp voice note that was shared on social media.
I said, so what led you to make to come to this conclusion, to make this statement on WhatsApp to some individual that I am corrupt? Where is the evidence that I have been involved in any corruption? Where is the evidence that I have abused the Antigua CIP program?
What was his response?
Boy, I'm so ashamed to answer, right? The man danced around the bush. He said, well, you know, I could not have made a statement in WhatsApp, you know, Prime Minister. I could not have made such a statement. So I was saying to myself, okay, you didn't make it a WhatsApp. Well, whatever forum or whatever medium that he utilized, the reality is his voice. And I writing to the IMF to ask him to fire him. It is actually the type of offense that could result in his termination. I think it is reprehensible. And if you hear what he says about some of the prime ministers in this region, it is reprehensible. You know, and for one, I'm not going to sit back and take it. I'm going after him, and he have to prove that it's not him on that tape. And by the way, I'm likely to get my lawyer to write him as well.
In Trinidad, local government elections have ended with a 7-7 tie between the ruling People's National Movement and opposition United National Congress. However, the PNM, which previously held 8 municipalities, is claiming victory on the basis of winning more seats than the UNC. They secured 74 seats, while the UNC got 65. The opposition is also celebrating a victory, having attained more votes and snatching a PNM territory.
We must remember that they outspent us 100 to 1. They outspent us with 100 to 1. In the air, on the TV, on the radio, ad nauseum, every minute of every hour of every day. But once again, what these elections show, that nothing is greater than the people, and we remain on the ground with the people. So whilst it is nice to have money to spend, money can't buy you love. And they found that out today.
More stories coming up. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us again. The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has boasted that his government will work to avoid the growth of popular protests in Latin America.
And so we, in the Trump administration, will continue to support countries trying to prevent Cuba and Venezuela from hijacking those protests. And we'll work with legitimate governments to prevent protests from morphing into riots and violence that don't reflect the democratic will of the people. And we'll be vigilant too. Vigilant that new democratic leaders don't exploit people's frustrations to take power, to hijack the very democracy that got them there.
France is now the latest country to be targeted by the United States trade war, as it now faces a threat of 100% tariffs on its exports to the country. Washington's threat of $2.4 billion is seen as retaliation for a digital services tax, which it said unfairly discriminates against U.S. technology companies. This move follows a spat between President Donald Trump and President Emmanuel Macron at the NATO summit after Macron called Trump brain dead.
Nobody needs NATO more than France. And frankly, the one that benefits really the least is the United States. We benefit the least. We're helping Europe. Europe unites and they go against a common foe. That may or may not be a foe. Can't tell you that. But there are other foes out there also. But I think nobody needs it more than France. And that's why I think that when France makes a statement like they made about NATO, it's a very dangerous statement for them to make.
The United States and Turkey have made strange bedfellows as divisions open up within NATO hours before its members met for an anniversary summit in London. This Tuesday, Trump said he had a good relationship with Turkey after the Middle Eastern country vowed to oppose a NATO plan to defend Baltic countries. That is, unless the alliance backs it in recognizing the Kurdish YPG militia as a terrorist group. The YPG's fighters were U.S. allies against the Islamic State group in Syria.
It's a country that I happen to have a good relationship with. We did a deal that everybody was very critical of, and now they're saying it works. I read a couple of stories just 2 days ago that, wow, that deal that Trump did with Turkey, because I want to get our soldiers out of there. I don't want to be policing a border that's been fought over for 2,000 years. I want to get them out, but I wanted to keep the oil. And now they're saying that was a great deal that Trump made.
Turkey is an important NATO ally, and you can just look at the map. Bordering Iraq and Syria, the only ally that borders that part of the world. And Turkey has been enormously important in our joint efforts to fight ISIS, Daesh. We have been able to liberate in the US-led coalition to defeat ISIS all the territory that ISIS controlled just a few months ago, and more than 8 million people that were under ISIS control. And we have done that not least by using infrastructure bases in Turkey. So in the fight against ISIS, Turkey has played a key role.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin criticized NATO's continued expansion. He said it was pointless given the absence of a threat from Moscow following the 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union. Still, Putin assured that his country remained ready to cooperate with the military alliance.
We have to proceed from the premise that NATO expansion and development of its military infrastructure near the Russian border is one of the potential threats to the safety of our country. So, going back to the topic of our meeting, let me say that we've been paying and will pay special attention to the technical re-equipment of the military forces.
The Finnish Prime Minister has resigned after a key coalition partner withdrew its support from his five-party cabinet. Antti Rinne took office in June and faced criticism over how he dealt with a 2-week strike by workers at the state-owned postal service. This prompted the formal resignation. Finland's parliament will also look at this, and they will decide who will be the new Prime Minister next week, as no early election is expected. And with that, we reach the end of our news brief, but you can find all of our stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa, and in Nigeria it's 539. And be sure to join us also on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.